The friendship of Jesus is a spectacular thing. I don't know about you, but maybe you've had the experience when late in the midnight hour, when you're going through something and you pick up the phone to find a listening ear and you call friend number one, no answer. You call another friend, right to voicemail. You call the third, but when you call on Jesus, there's always an answer, because the friendship of Jesus is a spectacular thing. What a friend we have in Jesus, the one who preached the good news. There is no greater love than this, than to lay down one's life for one's friend. I tell you all of this so that my joy may be yours and your joy might be centered and might be complete. This is the commandment, that we would love one another as Christ has loved us. I thank God for Jesus, who laid down his life for you and for me. They hung him high and stretched him wide on that Roman cross, a tool of capital punishment, and they killed an innocent man for a crime he did not commit. They hung him high, they stretched him wide, he hung his head, and then he died. I thank God for Jesus, who died on the cross that we might live. Imperial Rome thought that it had won, and the empire strikes back. But God always has our back, and there's always a backup plan. They buried him in the tomb on Friday evening. They didn't hear from him all day Saturday, but on the third day, early Sunday morning, while it was still dark, I thank God for Jesus, the Son of God, who considered it not robbery to surrender his life to the death-dealing ways of Imperial Rome, all as an act of unconditional love, not to be a martyr, not to valorize death, and not for some cosmic reward. No, Jesus died, laid down his life for his friends so that we would not have to. Jesus died so that we would not have to. That's good news. What a friend we have in Jesus, the one who laid down his life for his friends. Now allow me to be abundantly clear from the very jump. God does not want us to suffer. We follow Jesus, but the invitation is not to follow Jesus to the cross. God does not want us to suffer. God does not yearn or desire for our struggle, and we do not please God by mere sacrificing ourselves. You see, Jesus laid down his life for his beloved kin, for his friends, for you and for me, so that we would not have to. The one who was beyond time stepped into time to transform time for all time. Thanks be to God. For we who live during this age of crucifixion, beloved, it is so very important for us to become the resurrection people who bear the good news of Jesus. Jesus came that we might have life and have it more abundantly, and died so that we might live as we bear the crosses that we carry, and our hearts continue to break. As a would-be king who is terribly unfit to be president, wreaks havoc worldwide, using a bully pulpit, I despair. I don't know about you, but I've come to despair of this nation and its violence. All funded by white Christian nationalism and a Department of War whose leader believes in a modern-day crusade against everyone and every sovereign nation that refuses to bend the knee. Pete and Charlie and Stephen. The list goes on and on as they play their games with people's lives, how we wish that this present reality was fiction like HBO's Game of Thrones. But it's not. Far from it, as we, in this 250th year, as we've thrown off the chains of colony, we have established colonies in Venezuela, and the executive threatens war crimes like bombing Iran to oblivion and attacking the innocent. War crimes. As we bear the crosses that we carry today, I too am disgusted and appalled by the conservative and oppressive and exclusivist forms of Christianity that has helped to create this predicament due to the unholy proximity of the flag and the cross. And when I despair of this type of Christianity, and the ways in which it funds the white Christian nationalism that props up an unfit executive who yearns to be king. When I despair of this Christianity, I'm reminded of the early 20th century English literary giant Chesterton. Christianity isn't a failure. It just hasn't been tried yet. Christianity isn't a failure. It just hasn't been tried yet. In the forms that we point to as we read the good news of the gospel. What greater love than this, than to lay down one's life for one's friends? I give you this commandment so that your joy might be complete. Love, love, love one another as Christ has loved us. What a friend we have in Jesus. The Christianity we need to try is more open, more spacious. The Christianity that we yearn to experience, that we haven't tried yet but should, is less judgmental and much more kind. The Christianity that we yearn for in our heart of hearts is the Christianity that is gentle and comforting and inviting and expansive. The Christianity that we haven't tried yet is the Christianity that places the friendship of Jesus at the very center, at the heart. What a friend we have in Jesus. Might you bless God once more for the ensemble and their ministration of Reverend Timothy Wright's version of this great hymn of the church. Yes, beloved, the friendship of Jesus is a truly spectacular thing. Today, for just the few remaining moments, might we reconsider our 2026 theme of interdependence during this 250th year when we celebrate the Declaration of Independence, as we did earlier this month and continue to. I want us to reconsider our 2026 theme of interdependence, of connectedness and community in light of our Easter 2024 message that introduced us to the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, perhaps the closest friend of Jesus. As we sing the hymn, What a Friend We Have in Jesus, perhaps we revisit by way of Mary Magdalene, the closest friend of Jesus, what it might mean for us to try on, to put on a new garb, attire, uniform that's grounded in that Christianity that we have not tried yet. I'm really grateful to our connection groups that continue to wrestle with possibility as we gather for connection in small groups over these last couple of years in Bible study. This theme of this Christianity we haven't tried yet, and the Gospel of Mary Magdalene has continued to surface. And in fact, our Wednesday book club just concluded a group read of Mary Magdalene Revealed, the first apostle, her feminist gospel, and the Christianity that we haven't tried yet. Mary of Magdala, we know, we are reminded, we return to this truth that Mary of Magdala was a deep friend, a devoted companion of the Christ, and was, in fact, the first person at the tomb early on that Sunday morning while it was still dark. It was Mary who went to the tomb while it was dark. It was Mary who ran off to tell the sleeping male disciples who couldn't stay woke. It was Mary who shared the good news of the resurrection. It was Mary who announced, "I have seen the Lord. I have seen the Lord, and I have sat once again at the feet of the teacher." Although the Easter story literally begins and ends with Mary of Magdala, somehow we know Mary has been sent to the backstage as the men have taken center stage, Peter and Thomas and the other brothers who were asleep. We know how that happens, and the way in which patriarchy is sinister and insidious, and it literally erases and violates and crucifies women. Mary Magdalene has been gaslit, and her story has been relegated to a lesser part of Christian history. His story, erasing her story. This in part, for those who might recall and for those who might need a refresher, this is in part because 6th century Pope Gregory the Great, the 64th Bishop of Rome, lied on Mary and delegitimized her witness and her message, labeling her as a prostitute. How many of you have ever been delegitimized by what people say about you? Behind your back, sometimes even to your face. Mary Magdalene, to be sure, was neither a prostitute nor possessed by demons, but rather this was a ploy of patriarchy. She was not a prostitute, and there is simply not historical evidence to support the claim. This was an intentional smear by male bishops to govern the church in a way that excluded women as a tool of patriarchy. You with me? Yeah. But there is, on the other hand, evidence that supports a different possibility, that Mary of Magdalene was Jesus' friend, Jesus' closest friend, in fact, maybe even Jesus' wife. Turn to your neighbor and say, "Oops, didn't learn about that in Sunday school," right? The possibility, there is evidence, historical evidence, that supports the possibility that Mary of Magdalene was actually Jesus' wife, and they shared a type of connection such that when your spouse is your best friend. For those of you who read Dan Brown's 2003 novel and 2006 film, The Da Vinci Code, you might be familiar with this claim. Is it provocation? Maybe. Is it fascinating? Absolutely. Now, we're not going to dwell too much about it today. We'll come back to it in the future as we delve deeper and kind of use this methodology of like a spiral, that we return to the same place, but go deeper the next time around, that we return to themes that we visited before, but in coming back on a second or third time, we go a little bit deeper. We go a bit deeper and dig out pieces of the story that otherwise have remained buried, so that we continue to excavate as we make our journey of faith together. But for now, we simply want to open the door a little bit wider still, and perhaps in the future, we'll walk through this now open door a little bit together. So we continue to open the door and to pull back pieces of the history that have been buried, such that when we are ready, we might walk through that door and experience that which we've not yet experienced, or that which we've not tried yet. But today, let us continue to think a little bit beyond the controls of orthodoxy, and might we imagine a Christianity that does not do violence, that isn't so easily co-opted by evil as we pursue the good. The point here for today is for us to just find the fissures, the fractures, the breaks in the page that allow us ever so gently to tug at the string, to put a toe through the door, such that as we continue to open it day by day, week by week, at some point we might be ready to walk through a door into a new possibility. Megan Watterson's Mary Magdalene revealed the first apostle, her feminist gospel, and the Christianity we haven't tried yet is one attempt that we are making as a community to try on, to try out, to explore and imagine that which we yearn for in our hearts as our hearts break by the form of Christianity that continues to fund white Christian nationalism and prop up a government that wreaks violence at home and abroad. And Megan says this: I've always felt I would have to rewrite the history of Christianity to officially become a part of it. No, I would have to turn back the globe like Superman when Lois Lane dies and make certain they get the message straight from the start. Or the message, as I've come to believe in it, that we are not inherently sinful or unworthy in any way, and that we shouldn't feel shame for how human we are, or how often we break and lose faith and make wildly misguided mistakes. I search for the stories and the voices, she says, that have been edited out, or in the case of Mary Magdalene's gospel, torn apart and burned. So ever so gently, we continue through the lens of Mary Magdalene and her gospel and her friendship with Jesus. We walk closer still to this Christianity we haven't tried yet, and it's a Christianity that, yes, places the friendship of Jesus at the center, the type of Christianity that emerges when we read the Gospel of Mary, written by that close friend of Jesus who has largely been written out of Christian history. We might imagine and eventually try on that Christianity that cannot be imprisoned, where God is placed in a box. A Christianity that does not fall victim to the slippery slope of rugged individualism and the individualistic, self-centered, and selfish thinking that has fashioned orthodoxy these days. You see, a personal relationship with Jesus is not possessive, where we can fashion the divine in our image. and then go on to make false claims like, well, since I'm a racist and Jesus is my friend and I love Jesus, then I can say that Jesus hates black people, right? When we fashion our image of Jesus after ourselves and then claim because that Jesus is a friend of ours and we're a friend of Jesus, this false thinking becomes a slippery slope where we can falsely and misapply the commandments and the truth of the gospel to love everybody. So to speak of the friendship of Jesus, we must, of course, guard against the slippery slope of an individualized, self-centered, selfish thinking that has become the base of this white Christian nationalist evangelicalism that merely says, I follow Jesus, I love Jesus, and has no concern for the other, for the neighbor, for those who are marginalized and oppressed, who are lost and who are losing. Friendship is not ownership. And true friendship is neither possessive nor shallow, but rather it's always mutual, always accountable. What a friend. What a friend. What a friend we have in Jesus. During this semi-quincentennial year, when we continue to celebrate the 4th of July, 1776, and the start of the American Revolution, in conclusion, we might say that this hymn that we might sing again, it is revolutionary. It's revolutionary in the sense that, Joseph Scriven's hymn has been criticized by some scholars, some hymnologists, as being too simplistic, too repetitive. But for me, and perhaps you, as we sing it again, I find this deeply personal poem to be groundbreaking and to might even be a pathway to approach this Christianity that we yearn for. Because the poem, the hymn of Joseph, it was actually written during a time of deep loss. Written as a poem to his mother in the midst of losing, and in fact, after Joseph had lost his first wife and his second wife was ill. It's less interested about the forms of orthodoxy, less interested in making a refined theological point, and more concerned with connection. The poet Maya Angelou said it this way: I've learned that people will forget what you've said. People will forget what you did. But people will never forget how you made them feel. They'll forget your attempts to find the right words and all the struggles to package it in just the right way. But they will never forget how you made them feel. Building from the advancements of Enlightenment, rationalism, and scientific advancement, 19th century hymn writers like Joseph were especially known for expressing their personal relationship with Jesus. It goes on to give rise to what's known as the social gospel movement and the concern with the other and rebuilding the community. But at its core, this hymn and this approach, it rejects the harsh mandates and rules and regulations of institutionalized religion. And it yearns and beckons us towards something that, yes, is softer and closer to home and intimate and proximate, less interested in policing, more concerned with pastoral care and comfort and solace and encouragement and nurture. What a friend we have in Jesus. All our sins and griefs to bear. What a privilege to carry everything to God in prayer. Oh, what peace we often forfeit. Oh, what needless pain we bear. All because we do not carry everything to God in prayer. Have we trials and temptations? Is there trouble anywhere? We should never be discouraged. Take it to the Lord in prayer. Can we find a friend so faithful who will all our sorrows share? Jesus knows our every weakness. Take it to the Lord in prayer. I'm grateful this day, perhaps you are too, for this great hymn of the church. It was introduced to me and to the other young kids during Vacation Bible School at Metropolitan United Methodist Church in Buffalo, New York, 657 Best Street, just off the corner of the 33 Expressway. And Mother Seal Williamson, she said, as followers of the Christ, we want to be like Jesus in our hearts. You need to learn the 23rd Psalm and the Apostles' Creed in this hymn of the church. What a friend we have in Jesus. Are we weak and heavy laden, cumbered with a load of care? Precious Savior, still our refuge. Take it to the Lord in prayer. Do thy friends despise, forsake thee? Take it to the Lord in prayer. In his arms he'll take and shield us. Thou wilt find a solace there. So as we open the doors of the church and we take it to our God in prayer at the altar, might we make this our hymn of invitation. What a friend we have in Jesus. Would you sing it with me? Why don't you stand?